Welcome to KSR Data Vision YouTube channel. In this series of videos, we'll see all the interview questions one by one. The first question is, what is the difference between SQL and MySQL? SQL is a structured querying language which is used to communicate to all the databases, whereas MySQL is particularly one database where we can create objects. So here SQL is a language which we can communicate to all the other databases. One of the database will be MySQL. What is the difference between OLAP and OLTP? OLAP and OLTP are the two type of transactions that you can apply on top of a database table. Here, OLAP stands for online analytical processing, where the response time will take more than expected. I would say about minutes to days. To give an example, imagine that you are using Netflix. The movie recommendation will be happening over a certain period of time that what you use the application. 2 to 3 days, they will measure your activities. They'll see what are the movies you watched and then they'll recommend it. So the response time will be from minutes to days. Whereas if you talk about online transactional processing, which is nothing but OLTP, the response time is going to be as immediate as possible, which will be in milliseconds to seconds. So to give an example, imagine that you're doing a bank transaction or you're going for an ATM transaction. The response will be as immediate as possible. It will not be carry forward. So this will be online transactional processing. What is the difference between drop and delete? Drop is a DDL command. Once you drop an object, the complete object will be dropped. Even the structure will be dropped. Whereas if you go with a delete, now delete has the flexibility to delete either one record or all the records, but the structure will be maintained, and delete is a DML command. All the DML commands can be rolled back, whereas DDL commands cannot be rolled back. What is the difference between truncate and drop? Truncate and drop are the DDL commands. Once you truncate a table, the data will be deleted, whereas a structure will be maintained. Whereas if you go and drop the table, the complete table along with the structure also will be dropped. What is the difference between DDL commands and DML commands? The commands such as create, alter, drop are all DDL commands. It stands for data definition language. Any structural changes, we call it as a DDL commands. Any data manipulation language, like you manipulate the data like inserts, update and delete, we call it as a DML commands. Here we play with the data rather than with the structure. Now all the DML commands can be rolled back, whereas DDL commands cannot be rolled back. What is the difference between primary key and foreign key? Primary key and foreign key are the constraints that you can apply on top of the table. Primary key is a uniquely identification of a column, and here you will not have any duplicates, you will not have any null values. The best example I can give you is a Aadhaar ID or employee ID. Coming to a foreign key will be a key that will be referred from a primary key table. In foreign key, you can have duplicates. You can also have null values. Now here, you cannot have any other ID in foreign key, which was not part of your primary key column. That is the one thing which you will have to remember. What is the difference between primary key and unique key? Primary key is a key which uniquely identifies a row in a table. And here you will not have duplicates. Here you will not have null values. The best example I can give you is Aadhaar ID or employee ID. Coming to a unique key also is uniquely identifying every row in a table. But here you will not be having any duplicates, but you may have null values. The best example I can give you for unique is a phone number. If you give the phone number, it has to be unique. And if you are not willing to give, you can still keep it and you will have null value. So nulls are acceptable, whereas duplicates are not acceptable, and that is what is unique key. What is the difference between where clause and having clause in SQL? Where clause is used to filter the table records on the existing column, whereas having clause is used to filter the aggregated column on top of the table, and having clause can come only after the group by clause. What is joins and what are the type of joins? Now, joins is the only way that you can get the data from two or more tables in SQL. There are 6 type of joins followed by inner join, left join, right join, full join, cross join, and self join. What is the difference between left join and right join? So the difference between left join and right join is if you are taking join between two tables where you have applied a left join, the preference will be given to the left table. All the records from the left table will be appearing. All the matching records from the right table will be appearing, and non-matching records will be displayed as null. The similar way, if you're talking about a right join, all the data from the right table will be given preference and all the data from the right table will be displayed. Matching records from the left table will also come and the non-matching records will come as null. Can you tell me a scenario where you can use self-join? If a table has both employee and their managers associated in the same table, where managers can also be an employee, in this case, I can make use of a self join. And here table joining with the same table is called self join. And if I want to join employee ID with manager ID, in that case, that type of join can be a self join. Here, one thing we need to understand is you can use any join here, left join or right join, but if you're joining between the same table, only then it is called as self join. Can you tell me a use case where you can use a cross join? Now, cross join is a Cartesian product of two tables. Imagine there is a table, two table, and if you are doing a cross join, you will get a combination between these two tables. So to give an example, imagine there is a table which has all the shirts information, and in another table we have all the color information. And if I want to find the combination of shirts and colors that is available, in that case, I can go with the cross join. Cross join is a Cartesian product of the two tables. What is the difference between union and union all? So union and union all both helps you to club the data row by row. Here you can append the data one after the other. And here, if I'm going with a union, union will get you the data, but here the duplicates will be removed. Whereas if you talk about a union all, you can still get the data from one table to another table and you can have a similar structure. Here, the duplicates will be included. Performance wise, union all is faster. Have you heard about window functions? Window functions are a specific and special functions that I can apply on SQL. And here if you are calculating over a certain group of data, we call it as a window, and commands such as rank, dense rank, row number, lead and lag are all the window functions. What is the difference between rank and dense rank? Here, whenever you are calculating rank on a specific information in a table and your ranks will be skipped. In case if two or more ranks with the same number, the next number will be skipped. That is what is rank. To give an example, imagine if there are a student marks table and two guys have scored the first rank and the next person should be 2, but it will not be 2, it will be 3. That happens in rank. Now this is overcome in the dense rank function. In the dense rank functions, you'll be getting a consecutive ranks even though there is a repetition of ranks. What is the difference between lead and lag? Now, this lead and lag are the special functions which usually we use it to calculate year on year. So what happens in lag is the previous record will be pulled into another column with a one row preceding. So in that case, we call it as a lag. If you go with the leak, it's just the opposite of lag, where the previous record will go forward and it will be stored as one row above to the previous column. So we can use both to calculate our year-on-year calculations. What is the difference between SQL and PLSQL? So SQL is a structured query language where you will have some of the limitations where you cannot use some of the programming features like loops, if conditions, for loops. All of this can be like becomes a limitation. Whereas you go with the PL SQL, it's a procedural language, the extension that you can apply to a SQL where you can apply some of the programming language features. Example, if you are using some of the variables, loops, conditions, all of this can be applied on top of a block of code. Can you tell me what is the difference between stored procedures and functions? Stored procedures and functions are part of a PL SQL block. Whenever you want to do a repetitive task, in that case, we can go with the stored procedures. Stored procedures, the inputs are optional. And if you want to return a value, you can use the output variable, and stored procedures can be used for your repetitive task and it did not return any value. Whereas if you go with a function, functions are written for implementing any business logic or logical functionality. Your function will have inputs and the return type is mandatory, whereas functions can be called in the select query and procedures has to be called with a call function. What is the difference between table and view? The difference between table and view, table is a physical storage where it stores the actual data, whereas view, it is a virtual table. It stores only the SQL code written within that view. And table will physically store the data, whereas view will only store the view query. What is index, why it is important? So index is a similar comparison that I can make it to a book index. Whenever you want to search any certain topic, you can easily go through the index page and then you can navigate. The same exactly happens in SQL. If you want to search any particular record, rather than going and searching record by record in the complete table, we can apply index so that the search can be minimized. The basic objective of the index is to avoid the full scan and which will improve the performance. What are the type of indexes what we have? So there are two type of indexes. One is a clustered index and one is a non-clustered index. Clustered index is usually created on a primary key column. You can have only one clustered index in a table, whereas non-clustered index you can have as many as possible. It can be created on non-primary key column. Example, if you have a country information and you have different countries, different transactions. In that case, if I want to group only, let's say US data or India data, you can create index on top of this particular column. So which is nothing but non-clustered index.